Assuming that we find the perspicacity, the common purpose, and the will to get through this current turbulence with as little damage as possible, what should we expect? A concern that I have, and I believe many of us share, is whether the macroeconomic stability that we have achieved, even if it is preserved and enhanced, will necessarily and automatically lead us to the robust growth that we have longed for. And the answer is no, it won't. I marvel myself that despite the achievements, especially in the years leading up to COVID, economic growth has remained anemic, almost defiant, barely 1% each year. Hardly any better than in some of the darker days. What it tells us is that macroeconomic stability is essential but not sufficient. G. Arthur Brown provides some valuable insights as to what we need to do to close the circle. He begins, as Arthur Lewis did, by identifying our resource base, land, a limited amount of mineral resources, and a large pool of labor. Like Arthur Lewis, he saw that abundance of labor not as a burden, not as a handicap, but as an undeveloped, underutilized asset. And therefore, the brain had to get busy to see, how can you make good use of that asset? He recognized that standards of living could not improve unless that pool of labor was gainfully employed. But employed where? And employed to do what? When he was once asked why the government persisted in subsidizing the loss-making sugar industry, G. Arthur Brown said it was primarily to mop up labor, because the alternative would likely lead to social unrest. He argued that if agriculture was to be efficient and competitive, it would have to employ technology and disemploy much of its labor. Jamaica's economic future and its hope of absorbing the resource that it had in abundance, he argued, lay in the services sector, which had become the dominant sector in advanced economies, both in terms of job creation and its contribution to GDP. He cited the tourism industry as an example of Jamaica's potential in services. To achieve a higher standard of living, he contended that a country need not be in possession of large land areas, mineral resources, and other raw materials, but it had to have trained people. Lee Kuan Yew concurs. Speaking of the vital role played by an educated population in the Singapore miracle, he said, and I'm quoting him here, "Supposing we had oil and gas, do you think I could get the people to do this? No. If I had oil and gas, I'd have a different people with different motivations and expectations. It's because we don't have oil and gas, and they know we don't have, and they know that this progress comes from their efforts. So they do it, and do it well." End of quote. Former Prime Minister Edward Seaga once made the observation that there's no country in the world with a well-educated population that is poor.